It's great to be here with everybody today. Small request for those of you that are able to do it. For those of you that are able to do it, anybody that could turn on their video, that would be awesome. I am staring at about 40 black screens right now. So for anybody who's in a good spot, oh yes, I got one face already. Andrew, thank you. Ben, thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay, that'd be like talking to a team with everybody's back turned to you. And I think everybody would appreciate how tough that would be. So great to see everybody. I'll just kind of start. I think we've got like 30 or 40 minutes here today. I think reflecting, getting into this, one of the things that I'm most mindful of is one, there's no way in 30 minutes we're going to exhaust the topic of a coaching philosophy. So if anybody thought that was going to happen, feel free to log out right now. Two, I think any of us on the call today could give a talk similar to this. I think as coaches, our philosophy and who we are with our athletes, who we want to be in this world, is stuff that we think about all the time. Just to share a little bit of my coaching journey and kind of what's brought me to this moment is I started out, I was a college soccer player. I don't know if there's any soccer coaches on the call. Feel free to chat that in there. But I was a college soccer player at Georgia Southern University and went right into my coaching journey almost immediately after while I was doing graduate school. And I coached Division I, mostly Division I soccer for 14 years. And I don't think a single day or week went by when I wasn't frustrated by my maybe inability to kind of really consistently communicate what mattered to me, which I think is an underpinning of philosophy. And like all of you on the call, I had a lot of different influences as a coach coming up, and that's some of the stuff that we're going to get into today. But what all of that led to, when I started my journey in sports psychology back in 2010, that led to me writing my master's thesis on what I'd called old school, new school, or both. And it was a qualitative research project on what are the leadership preferences and styles of Division I men's soccer coaches. And there was one theme that to me hit at all of the tension that I had been experiencing along the way in my coaching journey. And it was this. I asked coaches, hey, what matters more? Accomplishing tasks and achieving goals, which is kind of like the winning part of what we do, the results part of what we do as coaches? Or is it about developing and maintaining strong interpersonal relationships? I bet if I asked every one of you one-on-one why you coach, somewhere in there would be around like development, connection, relationship building. You're in it for the long haul. And so that one question right there really captured kind of a lot of the tension that I've been feeling all the time as a coach, where I wanted to connect with my athletes. I wanted to have rapport with them. But at the same time, I really wanted results and outcomes. And so I have pretty much ever since 2010 been shifting in my coaching work now from doing sport coaching like all of you do to doing full-time sports psychology work. As Saxton mentioned, I went on to work with the Toronto Blue Jays. One of the fascinating parts about that job is I got to be in 6 or 7 different locker rooms all throughout our minor league and major league system. I got to see 20, 30, 40 different professional coaches and the way that they led and connected and guided the athletes that I work with. Now, most of my work is with professional soccer teams. I work with Atlanta United and the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And a lot of my work is actually with the coaching staff in trying to help them really get clear and consistent with what matters most. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I think all of us are mindful of the idea that when we have these zoom out moments and reflect on our philosophy, we get an idea of who we want to be, but we also know that coaching is not static. And the moment we walk into a practice and something is amiss or something is amiss within us, it can make it hard to connect with our philosophy. So I just want to normalize that right away. And I also have 2 questions for everybody as we get started today. I'm on the wrong screen. Let me switch over here. All right. Appreciate the patience. Saxton has put in the chat the link to Mentimeter. It's at the very top of the chat. So I'm going to share now. Can everybody see the scaling question?
Yep, you're all set.
That? Awesome. So just take a second and fill that in if you don't mind. Let's kind of see where we're at today as a group. By the way, fun fact, Mentimeter has a free version. And for all of us that are constantly thinking about how do I engage with today's youth athlete, this is something that can be done from cell phones. So thinking about different ways we can connect. I'll give it about 10 more seconds. Okay. So really a large majority of everybody on here, is anywhere from 4 to 10 clear on what their coaching philosophy is. One more question before we dive in. What about this one? When you hear coaching philosophy, what coaches come to mind? Who are some coaches that you think about beyond your own philosophy that come to mind when you hear coaching philosophy? Yep, the coaches that coached you, my college coaches. PJ Fleck, Coach K, yep. John Wooden, Tom Landry, Izzo, high school coach. Nick Saban, high school, Anson Dorrance. Yes. Joe Madden. All right, we got some baseball in there a little bit. Mike Leach. Pat Summitt, Coach K, my high school coach. These are great. Belichick. Yeah. Awesome, gang. Awesome. I appreciate everybody's responses on that. I'm going to go into my presentation now. And just wanted to share some thoughts today. Let's see. And can everybody see? Can everybody see this?
Yep, you're all
Thumbs
set.
up if you can see that. Yep, Saxton, we good?
Yes,
So
all set.
can everybody in the chat function answer this question? Just drop your responses in the chat. Thank you, Andy. Roadmap. Yes, John. The end goal. Yep. Keeping the end in mind. Players know expectations. Highlights the values. Compass. Clearly articulate. Offer direction. Clear understanding. Clarity. Expectations and team goals. Clear communication with players and parents. Yes. Guide. Yes. And the real reason behind why I coach. Guide our athletes. If you don't know why you show up every day, you'll overcorrect to what. These are awesome. To me, this just reinforces why, one, this isn't enough time to do this. And two, these communities that come together to get different perspectives are massive. One of the stories that stands out really loud and clear to me was my sons both play middle school football, and last year we went to the parent meeting, and to one of you that put in there about clear expectations, clear, that kept showing up over and over and over. And what I noticed in the presentation, where there are lots of expectations and there were lots of rules, lots of regulations, but nowhere in there was that magic slide that I was looking for that said, this is our philosophy as a coaching staff. This is what it's going to be like if your child plays for me or plays for us. And as a sports psych guy, I was sitting in the front row of this presentation. There's probably 200 parents in there. And when the head coach asked, are there any questions? I put my hand up on the front row. And that was the question that I asked. I said, what's your coaching philosophy? And he rambled. And I felt for him, because I thought that would have been a massive opportunity to connect about 200 parents in the room with his vision and direction and his principles about what he stood for. All of your answers in there that everybody put in the chat were absolutely spot on. We heard a lot of clarity. We heard a lot of words like expectations. We heard things about who the stakeholders are, that I'm doing this for my players and my parents. And we heard probably the biggest thing, and maybe this is the most important thing, that if we all logged off right now and we had maybe one takeaway from today, it would be the why, knowing why we coach. Somebody put in there, if that wasn't clear, we will kind of overcorrect onto things. So it's clear. There may be different reasons, but we need a coaching philosophy. Some of the research on this is that if you look just down into the blue area of this, when we have a coaching philosophy, it can impact at least two things. It can impact, one, our approach to coaching. So our approach to coaching, how we show up in training, practice, team talks, etc., is influenced when we keep that philosophy front and center. And then two, it's to better meet the needs of whoever our stakeholders are. And I think in all of our case, it's the athletes which we coach. And on the flip side of that, right? And this is particularly for more novice coaches. When I think back to when I first started coaching, I was a head coach at 25 years old at a small Division II school in South Carolina, Erskine College. If anybody has ever heard of Erskine, tiny little program. I was more of this slide here, and this is what some of the research on coach development says, that when we're less clear on what our coaching philosophy is, we tend to rely more on coaching content. So we'll spend more time on drills and correcting and technique. And again, nothing wrong. That is part of our coaching process. But what we miss in that are some of these more relational aspects. We miss some of the why behind we do it. we miss some of the connection with our athletes. So I just wanted to elevate those two kind of contrasting research points here, that when we have a clear philosophy, it can inform our approach. And when we don't have a clear philosophy, when it's even if it's somewhat clear, but we're not keeping it front and center, we're more likely to revert just to coaching content. And that comes across to our athletes very different than when the why is behind that. Some other things just to keep mindful of when we're thinking about our philosophy. One, our philosophy is a way to set expectations. We already lined this up in the why question earlier. But it's not just for our athletes, but it's also for us. I'm going in about 10 days to work with a couple Division I soccer programs for their preseason. And one of the head coaches was telling me that a survey that they sent out to their players, one of the questions was specifically, as coaches, what are your expectations of us? And I think we're really good as coaches of setting expectations for our athletes, but what does it look like philosophy-wise when we make it a two-way street? Two, a coaching tool to help guide us in their process of coaching. Three, it's a statement or few about what you value and how you approach your role as a coach. And just getting clear with that can pay so many dividends. Think about this for a minute. We have probably all had experiences where we played for coaches with very clear expectations and a very clear philosophy. And what that does from a psychological standpoint is it promotes stability. Walking into practice today, I can probably guess what my coach is going to be like, the type of instruction she's going to give me, what the environment is going to feel like. If you look at the other side of that, coaches without clear philosophy or clear values driven, and we probably have experienced this as well, you get instability from a coach. We've probably all played for a coach or had a leader at work where their mood dictated what the environment was going to look like that day. And from a psychological standpoint, that can create anxiety in our athletes where they're having to leak energy into how they should be around their coach versus know that their coach has a philosophy that's so clear that it creates stability in the environment. And then four, our philosophy is inclusive of purpose, beliefs, and principle. It includes why we do it, what we believe in, and the principles that are going to guide it. The other things to think about are when you're thinking about your philosophy, and I think these are things that are probably front and center for everybody. But if you look down at the bottom around coaching philosophy, and then you look up at those 5 blocks, typically, if you look at some of the research on coach development and ways that we are developing our philosophy over time, these are some of the big 5 areas that really go to informing what our coaching philosophy is. So first and foremost, and a lot of these were things that I found during my own research in coaching styles and coaching leadership. One is our knowledge of the sport, right? So that matters, right? How we correct, coach, teach, all those things. 2 is clear objectives. Clear objectives. If you look at some of the different types of environments that we're trying to create for our players, there's such thing as an ego environment where there is a big emphasis placed on results and outcomes. And then on the other side of it, you have more of a John Wooden style, which was classified as a mastery environment, where in that type of environment, coaches are more promoting preparation, promoting doing one's best, promoting learning from mistakes. So thinking about our coaching objectives, I work in an environment where it is win at all cost, but I'm constantly asking coaches, is that the only way that it has to be? Are there ways that we can continue to develop and support athletes that are trying to improve even as professionals? And then we get our own experiences. For example, the top two people that have probably influenced me the most in my coaching journey were my father, who was 37 years active duty Army, and then my first head coach, who was a Marine. So I had two guys probably with combined 50 years experience in the military, and I was just pumped full of discipline when I was a player coming up. But it wasn't until I was probably in my 30s when I started to actually ask, what's my style? Some of those things influenced me. And many of you said that when I asked you the question, when you think coaching philosophy, who comes to mind? A lot of the people that coached you. And I think by default, when we're developing our philosophy, it's easy to kind of carry on things that were done to us, with us, or for us, without really stopping and pausing and saying, is that authentic to me? Because I think all of us on the call would agree that whatever philosophy we choose, it's got to be authentic. And we can borrow from other people. It can be eclectic, but whatever we choose to talk about or say we care about, deep down inside, we've got to say, yes, that's authentic to me. And then also, two of the big top ones are personal beliefs. This is kind of my worldview on coaching. This is what I believe is important. And then also our personal values. Where do things like empathy, where do things like kindness, where do things like discipline, compassion, faith, respect, inclusiveness, fairness, all these things that really have an impact on how we show up in the world. How do we put those things into words? And then if you look at the top of this funnel here, all these things impact the most important thing, which is our coaching behaviors. It's why I titled today's talk, Talk is Cheap, because we can put our philosophy in a statement. We can give it to parents and players in a static environment like a preseason meeting or a parent meeting, but that's not really where it matters. Where it matters is when that athlete has made the same mistake 3 times over, or when that group of players you feel is struggling to buy in or commit to the team. Those types of barriers make it really, really important to connect with our coaching philosophy, and knowing that every word that we choose and every statement that we say is going to have an impact on our players' psyche. It's going to impact their motivation. It's going to impact their confidence, and it's going to impact their commitment. So all of these things have a psychological, emotional, and social impact on our players' sport experiences. I love this quote. This comes from the same research article that I referenced earlier, where they were talking to a more senior coach, and says, my coaching philosophy is developed through both playing and coaching. Mostly it feels like you learn what not to do while you're being coached by other people, and you learn what to do when you're doing it. I just thought that was pretty indicative of probably many of our experiences. One of the things when I am working with coaches that I really try and do is think of questions that are going to help us reflect. So much of my work in sports psychology is trying to raise others' self-awareness of their strengths and values. So if I were working with one of you, any of these questions would probably be questions that I asked you to help you think deeper about your coaching philosophy. So one is just reaching back and answering, who are the people that made a difference in your life? Who are the people that made you believe in yourself for the first time? Who are the people that showed you that it was possible to hold yourself to a higher standard? Like, what were those people doing and saying that made you think so fondly of them? I was talking with a professional athlete recently, and he asked me, he said, what do you think of Coach X? And I didn't fall into that trap, by the way. I said, what do you think of him? And they said, I don't care who you are, where you've played, or what you've done. He's going to make you better. And so this is person that could see that in that environment, not all places for professional athletes, the athletes feel like they might be able to get better every day, but in that place he did. A second question is, what do I want to stand for? And that second part is so important, no matter what. I think it's so important as coaches that we have our own set of non-negotiables. If you play for me, you can expect this from me. Many of us have probably seen The Playbook on Netflix. If you haven't, I strongly recommend it. They showcase 5 or 6 different college and professional coaches. And there is this very powerful scene in the beginning from Doc Rivers, where he's talking about his coaching philosophy. And Doc Rivers says the worst advice he ever got as a coach is don't get close to him. That's the worst advice. That was not authentic to him. He tried that. He tried to be more transactional. He tried to be more business-like, but deep down in his core, he's a coach that cares, and he wants to connect with his athletes no matter what. We have to think about this, especially as we're about to go into our seasons. It's not even preseason time yet. This is probably right around the corner for many of you. And answering this question, what do I want to stand for no matter what? That's a values-based question. And then 3, what expectations should my players have of me? Am I there to coach the starters, the biggest, the fastest, the strongest, or am I there for everybody? I think a lot of times about one of the things a pro coach I work with, I heard him say one time that he was just so focused on kind of the first maybe top 13, 14 guys that he thought he would play on the weekend, that it was often that he did not get to that bottom half of the group that maybe needed it the most, just to spend a little bit of time checking in with them. We all are very familiar with the constraints in the type of the work that we do. And I think one of the things that we have to ask ourselves is, what expectations should my players have of me? Then 4, beyond my record, how do I measure success? That's a tough one. That is a tough one, especially, for the coaches on the call that are really in competitive programs where record is really tied to longevity and career opportunities and trying to support families. Beyond winning and losing, what is success? And then probably my favorite 2 or 5 and 6, what do I want it to be like to be coached by me? I challenged a group of coaches just Monday of this week to go to their athletes when they get home and ask them, what's it like to be coached by me? And just see what type of responses that we get. And then probably the quintessential question, why do I coach? What do I love about the sport? What do I love about changing lives? I can tell you of all my favorite memories to this point, being invited to and being a groomsman in one of my players' weddings was, and to this day, more significant to me than any big win that we had along the way. And I think we probably could all tell stories about having that type of connection with our athletes. So these are just a couple. I'm sure you could think of many, many more on your own. But when we have these zoom out moments, or when we have these conversations with our coaching staffs, I'm sure many of you are leading other coaches as well, developing younger coaches, mentoring other coaches. These are questions that help us think big picture, keeping the end game in mind, so to speak. And then I also just wanted to, take a minute and reference some of the things that make it tough. I think a philosophy is static. It can live on a sheet of paper. It can live in our notebook. It can live on our home screen. It can live on our wall. I know John Wooden had the pyramid of success, right? But coaching is not static, right? Coaching is so active. And where our players were on Monday is a different spot than where they are on Tuesday. And so when we think about planning and running practices, when we think about the pressure to win, when we think about the age and stage of our athlete, addressing, correcting mistakes, who other stakeholders are, like our athletic director, other coaches, parents, and then also team meetings. These are just a couple kind of, in my opinion, day-to-day coaching activities where I'm just always curious what it would be like if another coach was holding your coaching philosophy in front of you during these moments. I mean, would we get different coaching behaviors if we were down by 15 points at halftime and really frustrated by how the team was playing and our coaching philosophy was staring us in the face? Or we had promised a certain player that they might get more playing time coming up, but then the game was really, 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 really tight. And you had to make that decision in the moment of, do I put this athlete in or not? And these are all questions that we face every single day. So just being mindful. Closing in on time, what are some other, not necessarily barriers, but what are some other coaching moments, drop this in the chat, that you think really could be addressed differently if our coaching philosophy was front and center? What's not on this slide? The paperwork. Yes. Parent interactions. Yeah. I would put that, Brandon, under the stakeholders, but yeah, I'm with you. Playing time. Yes, Ben, big time. Poor officiating. Support from administration. John, I'm assuming you're saying lack of support, probably. Challenges that occur, yeah, unforeseen circumstances. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Oh, I've got one more. Yeah, yeah. Differences in philosophies between you and your staff. Wow, that's a really good one. Thank you, Andy. Meal planning, distractions, pressure moments. Yep. I think those, like, we could probably classify almost all of those as pressure moments. If anything is gonna put us at risk of betraying our coaching philosophy, it would probably be when we're really feeling like we're under pressure. Those are really the moments where staying loyal to our philosophy could get tough, which is why we go all the way back to the first question about why this matters. And so many of you said words like clear, 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 clear. I want to make my philosophy so clear so that when I run into moments like this, I can use it as a tool to guide me through that pressure, right? Next time we're facing it, asking questions like, what do I stand for? What do I want this athlete to feel being coached by me right now? That has a way of changing the experience. Saxton, are you still on the call?
Yep, I'm here.
What time do we conclude at 11:45?
We can go all the way till noon, but
Okay. Well, I've got a little bit of an exercise that I'd like to do. I'm, as a sports psych guy, don't think you're getting out of here today without a little visualization exercise. So just want to take a couple moments to kind of bring this home for everybody. So now what I will ask you to do, if you like, you can turn your cameras off for this part, because I'm going to guide everybody through a quick little visualization exercise. So one of my favorite exercises to do with coaches is have them imagine they're going to their own retirement party. And I want to do this just for a few moments with all of you. And for everybody that's on the call, just want to invite you to take these next few minutes for yourself with all the busyness and pressures that goes along with coaching, it is so easy to forget the why. And I just want to ask everybody just to take a few deep breaths, whatever that means to you. Just take a moment for yourself. And then also, as you're taking these deep breaths, I'm going to invite you just for a minute or two to close your eyes and just imagine that you are many years from now at your own retirement party and all your players are showing up. Imagine this may be at the school or at a different event. It could be inside, it could be outside. They're there to celebrate you and thank you for being their coach. And just imagine maybe one player right now, one athlete, one human. Imagine them getting up. You can probably see their face right now. What would you want them to say about you? About how you coached them? About how you invested in them? They might be talking about how much they knew that you cared about them. And if you can, just imagine yourself and let yourself hear those words in this moment as they're there to celebrate you as a coach. And just like we started now, just give yourself maybe one or two more deep breaths as we close out this exercise, something we don't do nearly enough throughout the day. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and start your video again if you like. I appreciate everybody taking a couple minutes to do that exercise with me. Just drop in the chat what that was like for you. Refreshing, clarifying, relaxing, eye-opening, motivating, emotional, warm feeling, motivating. Appreciate the feedback. Clear vision, clarifying, motivating. Awesome. Awesome. I'm glad we did that. I was on the fence, just so everybody knows, on, oh, do you take almost 70 people through a visualization exercise? And I could tell, Mona Lisa, I know I'm calling you out right now, but I was watching you going through that, and I got a sense that you were really there. And even if one person had a powerful experience, it was worth it to me. Just thank everybody again for wanting to do that. So that kind of brings us to the end. I'm going to let Saxton in just a minute talk about the QR code there, but I wanted to take a couple moments now, if people have them, and just allow people to drop a question in the chat. And then if you've got a question, Saxton will call on you, or she'll read it out loud, and then we'll take a couple minutes for Q&A if people want to do that.